The janitor moved silently through the precinct, invisible to the officers, who barely acknowledged his existence. When gunshots erupted in the parking garage, Michael's body language shifted, revealing training no maintenance man should possess. Could this overlooked man, who spent his days emptying trash and mopping floors, truly alter the deadly standoff unfolding before them? 10 years earlier, Michael Reeves had been Captain Reeves of the Army Rangers, with 3 tours in Afghanistan and specialized training few soldiers ever completed. His tactical decision-making had saved dozens of lives during a hostage extraction gone wrong in Kandahar. Military brass had marked him for promotion. Fellow soldiers spoke his name with reverence. Then came the ambush that claimed half his unit and left him with a bullet lodged dangerously close to his spine. The physical recovery took 18 months, the psychological recovery never quite finished. When his wife couldn't handle his nightmares and mood swings, she left, leaving primary custody of their daughter Emma to Michael. His military pension wasn't enough, but he needed work with flexible hours to care for his 8-year-old daughter. The janitorial position at the 12th Precinct offered that flexibility. Night shifts while Emma slept, with a neighbor checking in. His background check raised eyebrows, but the precinct captain simply nodded and filed the paperwork away. "Your business is yours," the captain had said. "Just keep the place clean." That suited Michael fine. Anonymity had become his comfort zone. For 3 years, he'd maintained this quiet existence. Officers walked past him without acknowledgement. He overheard case details, station politics, personal dramas, all while invisible, just another fixture like the water cooler or coffee machine. He recognized patterns others missed, noticed inconsistencies in suspects' statements drifting from interrogation rooms, but said nothing. This wasn't his world anymore. Detective Samantha Winters had transferred to the 12th Precinct 6 months ago, bringing her impressive record from Boston homicide. At 34, she'd earned her detective shield through methodical work and unyielding determination. Her case closure rate ranked among the department's highest, but her personnel file noted difficulty with team integration and excessive self-reliance. She ran her precinct like her life, with precision, control, and minimal emotional entanglement. 3 years divorced, Samantha had learned that vulnerability was a luxury her career couldn't afford. She'd seen too many female officers underestimated when they showed any hint of softness. The male-dominated department respected her skills, but kept their distance from her calculated coldness. Unlike her colleagues, Samantha actually noticed Michael, not with any particular interest, but with the analytical observation she applied to everything. She'd noted his military posture, despite his attempts to mask it. The way his eyes continuously scanned rooms, exits, potential threats, habits impossible to unlearn. Once, she dropped case photos, and he'd gathered them without looking directly at the gruesome images, a deliberate aversion that suggested familiarity with violence. What Samantha couldn't see was Michael's life beyond the precinct walls, how he meticulously checked Emma's homework each morning, how he taught her chess to develop strategic thinking, how he kept his combat medals locked away, but maintained a small flower garden on their apartment balcony, zinnias and marigolds that reminded him life could still bloom after devastation, how he volunteered monthly at the VA hospital, sitting silently with soldiers whose wounds remained invisible to others but screamed loudly to him. Michael's dignity wasn't in what he'd once been, but in who he chose to be now, present, responsible, and intentionally unimportant. Until that ordinary Tuesday, when gunfire changed everything. The 12th Precinct erupted into chaos at 9:37 a.m. A suspected drug dealer named Carlos Menendez was being transferred from holding to county when his associates orchestrated an ambush in the precinct's underground garage. 2 officers down with non-fatal wounds. The suspect escaped, and somehow, a security breach had allowed armed men to access a secured area. Captain Reynolds slammed his fist on the conference room table. "I want to know how 3 armed men walked into our garage without a single alarm. Someone dropped the ball, and I want to know who." Officers pointed fingers at the security team. Security blamed outdated equipment. IT claimed their alerts had been ignored. Detective Winters stood silently by the window, reviewing garage surveillance footage on her tablet. The cameras show nothing unusual until the moment of attack, she reported. No forced entry, no suspicious behavior. Michael was replacing trash liners when he overheard the heated discussion. He hesitated, then approached. "Excuse me," he said quietly. Everyone turned, surprised at the janitor's interruption. "The service elevator has been malfunctioning. It sometimes responds to calls without logging them in the system." Detective Winters frowned. "And how exactly would you know that?" "I use it to move cleaning supplies," Michael explained. "I reported it 3 weeks ago." Captain Reynolds checked the maintenance records. "There's no report here." Michael maintained eye contact. "I filled out the form and left it with Officer Daniels." Daniels, a young officer with a perpetual scowl, shrugged. "Don't remember any form from the janitor?" "Regardless," Samantha cut in, "it's irrelevant. The service elevator requires a key card." "Not if you override it," Michael said. "The panel has a maintenance mode that—" "Thank you for your input," Samantha interrupted coldly. "We'll handle the investigation from here." As Michael turned to leave, he added, "They knew exactly when the transfer was happening. That information wasn't public." The room fell silent. Inside information meant a potential leak, a far more disturbing prospect than a security breach. "Are you suggesting one of our own assisted in this attack?" Captain Reynolds asked, tension evident in his voice. Michael met his gaze steadily. "I'm suggesting you check who accessed the transfer schedule." Samantha stepped between them. "You're overstepping, Mr. Reeves. Please return to your duties." As Michael walked away, he felt Samantha's eyes following him. For the first time, she was truly seeing him, not as the janitor, but as an unknown variable. Her analytical mind was already reassessing him, filing away his unexpected knowledge of security systems, his confidence among law enforcement officers. Later that day, Michael was cleaning the break room when Samantha entered. She poured coffee, then turned to face him directly. "Your employment record says you were Army, military police?" Michael continued wiping down tables. "Rangers. That's quite a career change." "Life changes. We adapt." Samantha studied him, her professional mask momentarily slipping to reveal genuine curiosity. "The service elevator theory, you really think that's how they got in?" "I think it's worth checking before you start suspecting your fellow officers of collusion." Something flickered across her face. Surprise at his directness, perhaps, or recognition of the logic in his statement. For a brief moment, their eyes met properly. Not superior to subordinate. Not detective to janitor. Just two people recognizing something familiar in each other. A certain guardedness, a careful distance maintained from the world. The moment passed quickly. Samantha's phone rang and she answered crisply. "Winters." Her expression hardened as she listened. "I'll be right there." As she moved toward the door, she paused. "For what it's worth, I am checking the elevator." Michael nodded, returning to his work. After she left, he waited 5 minutes, then made his way to the security office. The day guard, Bill, was an Army veteran, who actually acknowledged Michael's existence. "Hey, Bill, mind if I look at something on the monitors?" Bill shrugged. "Knock yourself out, I'm due for a coffee run anyway." As the guard left, Michael rewound the garage footage from that morning, looking for what he knew others might miss, not the obvious, the attack itself, but the subtle signs that came before, the preparation no one had noticed, the warning signs everyone had overlooked. Michael's apartment was sparse but immaculate, military corners on the bed, books arranged by subject and author, a chess set permanently set up by the window. Emma was at her mother's for the week, a court-mandated arrangement he accepted without complaint, though the emptiness of the apartment echoed in his chest. He opened his laptop and pulled up the service elevator schematics he'd downloaded from the manufacturer's website. The override function required specific timing on the keypad, something most wouldn't know, but would be obvious to someone with experience in security systems. As he studied the technical details, his phone buzzed with a text from Bill. "Detective Winters asking questions about you. Thought you should know." Michael wasn't surprised. Samantha Winters didn't strike him as someone who left loose ends untied. He closed the schematics and opened a secure browser, entering credentials from a life he'd left behind. The database access still worked, some administrative oversight in the DoD systems that he'd never pointed out. He searched for Carlos Menendez. The official record was minimal. Drug charges, suspected gang affiliation, no known connections to larger organizations. But Michael dug deeper, cross-referencing associates, locations, patterns. By 3 a.m., he'd identified 3 possible locations where Menendez might be hiding. Officer Jenkins approached Michael the next morning as he mopped the precinct lobby. "Hey, you're Reeves, right?" The young officer shifted uncomfortably. "About yesterday, the elevator thing? Turns out you were onto something. They found evidence someone tampered with it." Michael nodded, continuing to mop. "Detective Winters is leading the investigation now," Jenkins continued. "She's got us checking everyone who had access to the transfer schedule." "Good," Michael said simply. Jenkins hesitated. "You military for real? Bill mentioned you were in pretty deep." "Deep enough. My brother's Marines, Afghanistan, 2015. Jenkins' expression softened. "Rough transition back, still working through it." Michael stopped mopping. "Tell him to try the VA group on Tuesdays, 7 p.m., Building C. Ask for Dr. Kelsey." "What?" "Thanks, man." Jenkins nodded, seeming to see Michael properly for the first time. "I'll tell him." As Jenkins walked away, Michael noticed Samantha watching from the stairwell. Their eyes met briefly before she disappeared upstairs. Later that afternoon, Michael was fixing a leaking pipe in the women's restroom when Samantha entered, clearly unaware of his presence in the maintenance closet. She stood at the sink, splashing cold water on her face. In the mirror's reflection, Michael could see the exhaustion etched into her features. She looked younger somehow, vulnerable in a way she never allowed others to witness. When she noticed him in the mirror, she startled, then quickly reassembled her professional mask. "Mr. Reeves, I didn't realize—" "Fixing the sink," he explained, holding up a wrench. "Almost done." She nodded stiffly, then surprised him. "You were right about the elevator. And the transfer schedule. Only 6 people had access. We're investigating each one." Michael tightened the final fitting. "Check Officer Daniels' phone records." Samantha's eyes narrowed. Why Daniels specifically? His brother-in-law was arrested last month by narcotics, same unit that brought in Menendez. How do you possibly know that? Michael stepped out of the closet, returning tools to his belt. People talk around the janitor. They forget him there. For a moment, Samantha looked like she might demand more information, but instead she simply asked, "Is there anything else you've overheard that might be relevant?" "Menendez has a girlfriend with a house in Ridgewood, 1214 Maple Street." Samantha's professional demeanor cracked slightly. "We've been searching for any connection to Ridgewood for 2 days. How?" Michael turned to leave. Officer Collins takes personal calls at his desk. Loud ones. "Wait," Samantha called after him. When he paused, she seemed to struggle with what to say. "If you hear anything else, I'll let you know," Michael finished for her. That evening, as Michael prepared dinner, simple pasta for one, his phone rang. Unknown number. "Reeves," he answered cautiously. "It's Detective Winters." Her voice was clipped, professional. "We found Menendez at the Ridgewood address, but we also found evidence of a larger operation. Multiple shipments coming in tomorrow night." A brief pause. "I thought you should know your information helped." "Glad to hear it." Another pause, longer this time. "The captain wants to know my source. I said it was confidential." "Thank you. Don't make me regret it, Reeves." After she hung up, Michael sat at his kitchen table, staring at the chessboard. He moved a knight forward, opening up a new line of attack. For the first time in years, he felt the familiar tension in his shoulders, the anticipation before an operation. He'd promised himself he'd stay uninvolved, invisible, but some instincts couldn't be suppressed forever. His phone buzzed again. Emma sending a photo of her science project. A simple volcano, but her smile radiated pride. This was why he remained in the shadows. This was what mattered now. Yet as he texted back words of encouragement, Michael knew something had shifted. Someone had seen through his carefully constructed invisibility. And despite his better judgment, part of him welcomed it. The precinct hummed with renewed energy. After locating Menendez, the focus shifted to the larger drug shipment scheduled for that night. Officers prepared tactical gear, while detectives finalized operational details. Michael maintained his routine, cleaning methodically, but his senses remained heightened, catching fragments of the operation plan. During his lunch break, Michael sat alone on a bench outside, reviewing mental maps of the warehouse district where the shipment was expected. The area had changed since his time in law enforcement, but certain principles remained constant. Entry points, defensive positions, escape routes. Mind if I join you? Michael looked up to find Officer Jenkins standing there, holding a sandwich. Free country, Michael replied, sliding over. They ate in companionable silence until Jenkins spoke. You seem tense today. Just thinking. About the operation tonight. When Michael didn't respond, Jenkins continued. Everyone's talking about how Detective Winters suddenly had intel on Menendez. Some think she has an informant. Others say she made a breakthrough herself. He studied Michael's impassive face. Funny timing after your conversation with her. Michael maintained his neutral expression. Detective Winters is good at her job. Yeah, she is. Jenkins wadded up his sandwich wrapper. She's also been asking about your military record. Nothing official, just questions here and there. Not much to find. Jenkins snorted. Right. You know, for a janitor, you've got half the precinct reassessing you. Bill from security says you were some kind of operator back in the day. Special forces type. Bill talks too much. Maybe. Jenkins stood to leave. Or maybe it's time someone knew who you really are. As Jenkins walked away, Michael noticed Samantha watching from a second-floor window. Their eyes met briefly before she turned away. Later that afternoon, as Michael emptied trash bins in the detective bullpen, he overheard Captain Reynolds and Samantha in heated discussion. The warehouse has 3 access points, but we don't have enough personnel to cover them all securely, Samantha argued. Then we focus on the main entrance, Reynolds countered. That's where the exchange will happen. And leave the back exposed? They'll slip away the moment they sense something's wrong. We've got who we've got, detective. Make it work. After Reynolds left, Samantha remained at the whiteboard, staring at the warehouse layout with frustrated intensity. When she realized Michael was there, she didn't dismiss him, as she once might have. Problem with the operation? He asked quietly. She hesitated, then gestured to the diagram. We need to cover all exits, but we're short-staffed. 3 teams would be ideal. Michael studied the layout. The northeast corner has poor visibility, merges into a blind alley. He pointed to another section. This loading dock is likely unused. The building next door was condemned last year. Makes it a prime escape route. Samantha stared at him. How do you know the building was condemned? I read local news. Michael erased part of her diagram and redrew it. If you position a team here instead, you can monitor both the side entrance and the loading dock. Better coverage with the same personnel. She studied his adjustment, then nodded slowly. That could work. She looked at him with newfound curiosity. You weren't just rangers, were you? Michael began gathering trash again. Does it matter now? It might tonight. He met her gaze steadily. I'm a janitor, Detective Winters. That's all. As he turned to leave, she called after him. Michael! The use of his first name stopped him. Whatever you were before, I think you were good at it. That night, as officers prepared for the operation, Michael finished his shift and headed to the locker room. He changed into street clothes, then sat on the bench wrestling with competing instincts. Walk away, go home, stay uninvolved. But something pulled him toward the operation room, where final briefings were underway. He stood in the doorway, unnoticed by most. Samantha was pointing to the warehouse diagram, detailing team positions and communication protocols. When she finished, officers began filing out, heading to their vehicles. She looked up and saw Michael. Reeves. She approached him. Shift's over, isn't it? Yes. She studied him, understanding dawning in her eyes. You want in on this. You didn't say that. You didn't have to. She lowered her voice. I looked into your record, what I could access anyway. Significant portions are classified. Michael remained silent. 3 purple hearts, a silver star. She maintained eye contact. Something in Kandahar that's heavily redacted. Ancient history. Maybe, she glanced toward the departing officers. But tonight, we're short-handed and walking into an uncertain situation. She hesitated. I'm not asking you to come. I'm just saying, if you happen to be in the vicinity, as a civilian. I have a daughter, Michael said quietly. Samantha nodded. I know. Emma, right? 8 years old. Your ex-wife has her this week. When Michael's expression hardened, she added, I'm a detective. I detect. Before he could respond, her radio crackled. Detective Winters, we're ready to move out. Be right there. She gave Michael one last look. Whatever you decide, the operation's centered at Warehouse 17, Dixon Street. She turned to leave, then added, for what it's worth, I think Emma has a father she could be proud of, whatever he chooses to do tonight. As Samantha joined her team, Michael returned to his locker. He opened it and stared at the small photo of Emma taped inside. Below it sat his phone, keys, and wallet, nothing that reflected his former life. He'd left that behind. The tactical thinking, the calculated risks, the responsibility of others' lives in his hands. After 10 minutes of stillness, Michael closed the locker and walked out of the precinct. He got into his 10-year-old sedan and drove home, just as he did every night. But 3 blocks from his apartment, he turned right instead of left, heading toward the warehouse district. Some choices weren't really choices at all. 2 hours later, positioned on a rooftop overlooking Warehouse 17, Michael watched through a pair of binoculars as Samantha's operation unfolded. Her tactical approach was solid, but he'd spotted what she hadn't: a 4th exit, partially hidden behind stacked shipping containers, and more concerning, 2 armed lookouts she couldn't see from her position. Michael pulled out his phone and dialed the number she'd called from earlier. Winters, she answered tensely. Northeast corner, behind the containers, 2 armed men and another exit. Brief silence. Reeves? They're waiting for you to move in, then they'll flank you from behind. How do you know this? Because it's what I would have planned, he paused. You need someone to watch your back. Another silence, then, stay where you are, this is official police business. I'm just a concerned citizen, detective, reporting suspicious activity. He could almost hear her internal struggle. Finally, what's your position? Rooftop, building opposite the main entrance. I can see everything from here. Stay there, eyes only, do not engage. Her voice hardened. I mean it, Reeves. If you interfere, just evening the odds, he replied, ending the call. Michael watched as Samantha discreetly repositioned one of her teams to cover the hidden exit. The pieces were in motion now, and despite years of determined detachment, he felt more alive than he had in a very long time. The operation collapsed into chaos at 11:42 p.m. What should have been a coordinated arrest devolved into a firefight when one of the dealers spotted an undercover officer. Gunfire erupted from multiple directions. Officers scrambled for cover behind vehicles and shipping containers. From his rooftop position, Michael tracked the movement patterns, identifying shooters and relaying positions to Samantha via text messages. She coordinated her teams based on his intel, gradually regaining tactical advantage. Then Michael spotted it. Officer Daniels breaking from his assigned position, moving suspiciously toward the warehouse office. Through his binoculars, Michael could see Daniels was on his phone, gesturing urgently, not calling for backup, warning someone. Good practice, Julian murmured, reaching out to bust up Michael's rest. Daniels is compromised, Michael texted Samantha, moving toward office. Likely, warning primary target. No response. Michael scanned the chaos below and located Samantha, pinned down behind a patrol car, separated from her radio, unable to check her phone. Her position was exposed, with limited cover and no clear escape route. 3 armed men were methodically working their way toward her position. 2 more minutes, and they'd have a clear line of fire. Decision time. Michael descended from the rooftop, moving silently through shadows toward the warehouse perimeter. He lifted a discarded handgun from an unconscious dealer, checked the magazine. 4 rounds remaining. Not ideal, but workable. Keeping to cover, he navigated toward Samantha's position. When one of the approaching gunmen separated from his companions, Michael struck a quick chokehold, pressure applied precisely to the carotid artery. The man collapsed silently. One down. Michael advanced, calculating angles and timing. The second man never saw him coming. A strike to the back of the knee, then the temple as he fell. 2 down. The third man turned at the sound, weapon raised. Michael dropped and rolled as bullets splintered the concrete beside him. He came up firing, 2 precise shots. The gunman fell. 3 down. Samantha's eyes widened as Michael appeared beside her. "What the hell are you doing here?" she hissed. "Saving your operation?" He nodded toward the warehouse office. "Daniels is inside. He's your leak. You can't know that? He's been on his phone this whole time, warning someone. Check your personnel tracker." Samantha pulled up the digital map on her phone, showing all officers' positions. Daniel's marker was indeed in the office, far from his assigned location. "I need to get there," she said, assessing the open ground between them and the office. "Too exposed. Wait for backup. By then, whatever evidence is in there could be destroyed." Michael recognized the determination in her eyes, the same look he'd seen in his own reflection before difficult missions. "I'll create a diversion. East side, 30 seconds. When you hear it, run. Don't stop." Before she could protest, he was gone, moving through shadows toward a stack of empty drums. He positioned himself, then sent a text to every officer's phone. "All units converge on east side for suspect apprehension." Then he toppled the metal drums, creating a thunderous cacophony that drew gunfire from multiple positions. Officers, responding to both the text and commotion, began moving toward the east side. Samantha seized the opportunity, sprinting across the open space toward the office. Michael provided covering fire with his remaining 2 rounds, then retreated as return fire intensified. Inside the office, Samantha confronted Daniels as he was deleting files from a computer. She apprehended him at gunpoint while securing digital evidence proving his connection to the drug operation. His brother-in-law's arrest had made him vulnerable to blackmail, which evolved into willing participation for financial gain. By midnight, the operation was under control. Multiple arrests made, drug shipments seized, 2 officers wounded but stable. Captain Reynolds assembled the team for debriefing in a command vehicle. Michael watched from a distance, preparing to slip away unnoticed. "Detective Winters," Reynolds announced. "Exceptional work coordinating our response after the operation went sideways. Your tactical adjustments saved lives tonight." Samantha stood, her uniform dusty from combat but her posture unwavering. "Sir, I had assistance." She looked directly at Michael. "Mr. Reeves provided critical intelligence and support." The assembled officers turned to stare at the janitor. Whispers rippled through the group. "The janitor?" Reynolds asked incredulously. "Former Captain Michael Reeves," Samantha corrected. "Army Rangers, Special Operations. His tactical insight identified our security breach and helped us locate Menendez." She paused. "And tonight, he saved multiple officers' lives, including mine." Reynolds studied Michael with new eyes. "Is this true?" Michael shrugged. "I was in the neighborhood." "Engaged armed suspects without authorization," an internal affairs officer noted. "That's a serious violation." "He'll acted as a civilian in defense of police officers under imminent threat," Samantha interrupted. "Any citizen has that right." The internal affairs officer frowned. "Still, we'll need a full statement and—" "Of course," Samantha cut in smoothly. "I'll personally ensure Mr. Reeves cooperates fully. Tomorrow." As the debriefing concluded, officers approached Michael, some offering handshakes, others simply nodding with newfound respect. The invisible man had suddenly become the center of attention. Samantha joined him as the crowd dispersed. "You disobeyed a direct order to stay put. Technically, I'm not under your command." A ghost of a smile crossed her lips. "Lucky for you." They stood in comfortable silence, watching ambulances and police vehicles depart. "You could come back, you know," she said finally. "With your background, any department would—" "I'm a janitor," Michael interrupted gently. It's what I need to be right now. She studied him, understanding more than she voiced. For Emma? He nodded. For both of us. As dawn broke over the horizon, Michael Reeves returned to the precinct, not as a hero, but as the janitor, with keys jingling against his hip, ready to clean up after another night's chaos. Only now, when officers passed, they saw him. Really saw him. 2 days after the warehouse operation, Michael was fixing a flickering light in the evidence room when Samantha entered. She placed a manila envelope on the table. Security camera footage from the warehouse, she explained. Thought you might want to see something. Michael climbed down from his ladder. I was there. Not much I need to see. This is from before we arrived. She opened the laptop accompanying the envelope. Camera on the adjacent building caught this. The footage showed a black SUV arriving at the warehouse 3 hours before the operation. A man emerged, tall, military-bearing, face partially obscured. Mean anything to you? Samantha asked, watching his reaction closely. Michael's face remained impassive, but his right hand tightened almost imperceptibly on the screwdriver he held. Should it? The man's identity is unclear, but his movement patterns match specialized military training. She paused. Similar to yours. Lots of veterans out there. True, she closed the laptop, but not many would recognize this particular man and have reason to tense up. She met his eyes directly. What aren't you telling me, Michael? He returned to his ladder, resuming work on the light fixture. Everyone has ghosts, detective. Some are best left undisturbed. Not when they're connected to an active investigation. Michael descended again, facing her properly. The man in the video is Marcus Shepard, former Delta. We served together in Afghanistan. He paused. Last I heard, he was working private security contracts of questionable legality. He's connected to the drug operation? If he's involved, it's bigger than drugs. Michael's expression darkened. Shepard doesn't move product. He moves people, information, sometimes weapons. Samantha absorbed this. Why didn't you mention this connection before? Because I'm not certain it is connected. Shepard and we have history. Complicated history. She studied him, sensing the depths beneath his careful words. The kind that gets people killed? The kind I left behind for Emma's sake. He picked up his tools. If Shepard is involved, be careful. He's not someone you confront directly. As Michael turned to leave, Samantha caught his arm. The touch was brief but electric, the first physical contact between them. You don't have to face this alone. Their eyes met, a current of understanding passing between them. Not romantic, not yet, but something equally powerful. Recognition. Two warriors acknowledging each other's battle scars. Some fights, he said quietly, are better fought from the shadows. Monday morning arrived with a strange normality. Michael mopped floors, changed light bulbs, and unclogged sinks. The same routines he'd performed for 3 years. But everything had shifted subtly. Officer Jenkins saluted him casually when they passed in the hallway. The desk sergeant pushed a fresh coffee toward him without comment. 2 detectives stepped aside respectfully when he needed to clean their area. No grand speeches or ceremonies marked his transition from invisible to seen, just small acknowledgments that rippled through the precinct. The quiet recognition that extraordinary people sometimes hide in ordinary roles. Captain Reynolds called Michael into his office that afternoon. Reeves, the captain began awkwardly. The department would like to formally acknowledge your assistance in the Menendez case. Michael remained standing. Not necessary, sir. Nevertheless, Reynolds pushed a small box across his desk. Inside lay a civilian commendation. There would be more, but Detective Winters insisted we respect your preference for privacy. Michael nodded, appreciating Samantha's understanding. The thing is, Reynolds continued, we have an opening. Security consultant. Flexible hours. Better pay than what you're getting now. I'm comfortable where I am. Reynolds studied him. Your daughter might appreciate the upgrade. Michael considered this. I'll think about it. When he returned to the janitorial closet, he found a child's drawing taped to the door. A stick-figure man in a blue uniform stood beside a smaller figure with pigtails. "My dad" was written in uneven letters. He recognized Emma's artwork immediately, but was confused. She hadn't been to the precinct in months. Inside the closet, he found a note from Samantha. "Emma left this at her school. Thought you might want it here, rather than filed away." That evening, as Michael was leaving, he found Samantha waiting in the parking lot beside his car. "Heading home?" she asked. "Emma returns tonight, making her favorite dinner." Samantha nodded. "The security consultant position. Reynolds mentioned he offered it to you." News travels fast. "It's a good fit. You'd still have the flexibility for Emma, but with work that uses more of your talents." Michael leaned against his car. "Why does it matter to you?" She considered the question seriously. "Because talent shouldn't be wasted. Because everyone deserves a second chance at being who they really are." She paused. "Because I could use someone who sees what others miss." "Partners?" he asked, a hint of amusement in his eyes. "Colleagues," she corrected, but with warmth in her voice. "For now." They stood in comfortable silence, the evening air cool around them. No declarations, no dramatic promises. Just possibility stretching between them like an uncharted path. As Michael opened his car door, Samantha held out her hand, not in gratitude or in greeting, but in offering. "Next time," she said quietly, "you don't need to fight alone." Michael looked at her outstretched hand, the gesture simple yet profound, more meaningful than any words could have been. After a moment's hesitation, he took it, their grasp firm and brief. No promises were made aloud, none needed to be. In that handshake lived acknowledgement of what they both understood. That strength sometimes means accepting help. That battles fought together carry less cost than those fought alone. As he drove home to prepare for Emma's return, Michael caught himself doing something unfamiliar, planning beyond tomorrow. For 3 years, he'd existed day to day, his future deliberately uncontemplated. Now, possibilities flickered at the edges of his thoughts. The following morning, Michael arrived at the precinct carrying not only his maintenance tools but also a folder containing his application for the security consultant position. When he placed it on Reynolds' desk, the captain simply nodded, as if he'd never doubted the outcome. In the hallway outside, Michael passed the bulletin board where commendations and achievements were displayed. His civilian citation hung in the corner. No photo, no fanfare, just his name and a simple acknowledgement of service above self. He didn't pause to look at it. The recognition that mattered wasn't found in plaques or public praise. It lived in Emma's drawings, proudly displayed on his refrigerator. In the respect now evident in his colleagues' eyes. In Samantha's quiet understanding of his boundaries and strengths. As he rounded the corner, he nearly collided with Samantha, coffee in hand, case files tucked under her arm. "Morning," she said, her professional demeanor softened slightly around the edges. "Morning," he replied, continuing toward the maintenance room. No dramatic declarations, no sudden transformations, just two people with complicated pasts, moving forward one step at a time, finding, perhaps, that invisibility wasn't protection but isolation. That being seen, truly seen, was terrifying, and necessary in equal measure. And for now, that was enough.